this particular coach had me reframe it and said, I don't want you to think about hourly. I want you to think about packaging because
Mm,
coaching really, the benefit of coaching is not a one-off. It's not just a one session and then we're good, right? That's more of a triage type of intervention. Coaching is
mm,
a bit more long term, and long term can be defined, as 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever you like, right? And so if you take a step back and you think about what would be the optimal minimal number of sessions that I could provide to a person to help them in whatever area they need assistance in, that's how you can come up with a package versus an hour.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Wynn, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets. I'm Kevin, and today we are joined by Dr. Loren Hill. She is the founder of The Clivity, been a coach for over 15 plus years. Welcome to the podcast, Loren.
Thank you, Dr. Sorry.
You, you can just
I
call me Kevin. It's totally cool.
Okay, all right. Sometimes it's the formalities, sometimes it's casual, but yes, thank you, Kevin, for having me.
Oh man. So one of the first things that I'm so curious about, I was doing a bit of research on yourself, and you have over 23.2K like followers on LinkedIn. You've been in the game for 15 plus years. You just didn't wake up to this, right? And so I love to start at the origin story, the beginning, the lore. Um, you could have been a sushi chef. You could have been a lot of different things, but you chose coach. And so, what made you want to become a coach, and more importantly, turn it into a business?
So the origin story has many points of interest. You're right, Kevin. I could have been many things. And although I couldn't have been a sushi chef, I could have probably been a soul food chef. Love to cook. I could have also been a baker. Love to bake. But my life path took me through different, I like to say a meandering path, right? So I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of California. And I like to say that actually coaching found me. As I was working with clients, and I was working with primarily clients in my private practice, clinical practice, I should say. I was working a lot with high achieving women who were in like the C suite space. And although they definitely benefited from therapy, they were looking for coaches. So they would always ask, do you have a referral to a coach? And I found it hard to identify people that could help them and the challenges that they faced, particularly with the intersection of gender and being in, corporate spaces. So one day, one of my colleagues said, maybe you should consider coaching as another part of your business. And I thought, well, that might be interesting, but I don't know if my heart's in it. Then I
Mhm.
went into higher ed and became a faculty member, later became an administrator, and along the way, I noticed that there was not any support for career development if you were at a particular level. If you were an administrator, you may have received some coaching, but generally, if you were a faculty and you were trying to promote, you did not have access to professional development in that way. So from there, this same friend really encouraged me to branch out into coaching, specifically in the space of higher ed. And so I took a chance and I did it. And here we are many years later with me really diving into that particular space with academic career advancement. And so I work with faculty who are trying to promote and rank. I work with people who are early career, mid career, advanced career, or even later career who are thinking about trying to pivot out. Some are trying to pivot up from faculty into administration. Some are trying to pivot from administration out to back to faculty. So there's a lot of, ways in which people navigate the space of higher ed in their career development.
Mm. Now, it's really interesting how you kind of fell upon the higher ed community. And so I'm very curious, what are some of the challenges that a lot of these people are facing when they're trying to pivot out or pivot up, as you mentioned earlier?
So I would say one of the first challenges is that many of them don't realize that coaching is available. Even if they've heard of career coaching, most people think about career coaching in terms of getting into a specific field. They might work with a career coach and do some assessments to see, what's a good fit for your interest. Others think about career coaching for maybe, people who are in high school or even vocational work, but not necessarily in the space of higher ed. So awareness is one thing. The next thing is that usually when people go into higher ed, their career path is something like, I'm going to get an appointment as a professor. I'm going to go for tenure, or at some point I'll go for rank. Maybe I'll be an administrator, but there's not a lot of space around thinking about your career path. And I like to tell people that I'm working with is where you are now the position you have now is a job. You have to think about your career. Like, where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Do you even want to be at this same university? And sometimes
Mm.
the crisis point occurs when the university, when they figure out that their goals and the university goals are mismatched. So that could be a point in which they begin to reflect. Sometimes they are experiencing, like a lot of people do in careers, is just burnout, right? We've been tasked with doing more, but having less resources. There could be other types of disruptions, like those that come from outside of the academy, if you will. And so these present their own unique set of challenges. And when you're just going to work every day, trying to do the best you can, whether that's working with students, whether it's in your lab, whether you're an administrator over a particular college or even a president or provost, you have to deal with sometimes these competing interests, and you don't have a lot
Mm.
of time or space to think about your own development. So that becomes another point of challenge.
Yeah, I never really thought about it too. Like, thanks for painting the picture of those what you mentioned, competing interests, right? Where sometimes your own ambitions or goals are in line with the universities. That's really, really interesting. And so now that we kind of understand the problems or challenges that um, your target audience is kind of facing, how do they find you, right? Like, how do, like, we mentioned LinkedIn earlier, but I'm very curious about the different methods they use to find you.
So LinkedIn is really a great space for finding people and connecting, right? So
Mm.
one of the strategies that my team uses is that we do a lot of outreach on LinkedIn and other social medias
Mm.
as well. Because, if you're in your lab or if you're in your class or even if you're in your president's office sitting there trying to figure out, how to navigate the space, you may not be thinking about, like, how do I find somebody, or did I even need somebody? So we do a lot of outreach. The other thing is that people refer to me all the time. People that I've worked with will tell people, "Hey, I think you need to reach out to Dr. Hill or, Loren and just do a consult and see what she says." So, the interesting thing about me having been doing this for a number of years, also having a large following, sometimes people reach out to me who aren't in higher ed, and so they are trying to figure out how do I move forward in my career, because one of the things that I've really tried to do, Kevin, is yes, my primary audience is higher ed, but I try to speak broadly to career advancement, because if you are here to help people and coach people, I feel like you should have transferable skill sets. Some coaches
Mhm.
do, some, choose to just really stay focused on one particular area. But because I've worked with people in the C suite space, I've worked with people in higher ed, I've worked with people in nonprofit space, for profit space, you name it. Some of the key components of the type of coaching that I like to do has to do with advancement, right? So most people think about their job, and some people think about their career and they think, wow, I really would like to get a promotion, right? Maybe I want to work for another company at some time. So when you think about
Mhm.
career advancement as the total modality that I work in, it's not surprising that people from outside of the academy reach out to me as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, because you all often hear the traditional advice of niching down and whatnot, but what you're doing is actually quite the contrary. Like, it's like the opposite.
Yes.
And so, but it sounds like you're very focused on the problem of career, like advancement, as you put it as well. So, yeah.
I do. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No,
I
no,
was
no, no.
gonna,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that I do think that having a different mindset about career and jobs is important, particularly for women and those people who aren't usually in the space where people are promoting them automatically. And even if
Mhm.
it's not, an official promotion, it is encouraging them to do something different, higher, better, expand versus just stay where you are. I think about my parents and how, sort of, it's so funny to say this, but back in the day, the goal used to be get a job, right? Get a job, stay there. It's a great job, get your benefits, your retirement, and it'll be fine, right? Well, that was then. This is now. Okay, you might get a job, but I work with also, people who are younger than me, and some of them are like, I'm going to stay here for, if I stay here 2 years, I've stayed too long. So when you're working with people across, age groups, it's important to be aware of what their comfort zone is, and how they can also be competitive, right? So
Mhm.
career advancement means usually that there's more people sort of, at the entry point, few, then it starts to dwindle as you move upward. So as you ascend, you really need to be thinking about how do I make myself most competitive.
Mm. You got your drink. Let's cheers.
I did. I did. I was trying to be. I was trying to
Sneaky.
be, but I
No,
failed it.
it's cool. I love it.
Yeah, the home barista, you gotta get one.
Dude, that's a life hack. I mean, like honestly, that's the thing about business sometimes. It's just like business and personal life, you just got to get help and it just
Yeah.
makes your life so much easier. Yeah.
I'm so glad you
Okay.
brought that up. I'm so glad you brought
Yeah,
that up. If I could just linger there for a moment. I just
please.
did a workshop. We're actually launching another part of the business, white glove coaching, right?
Mm,
Because people are wondering, like, how can I get to what you're getting, where you are. And part of our business model, and I had to learn this, is that you can't do everything. You have to know when to bring in help, right? And usually, entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, solopreneurs are in the beginning, you may have to do a lot on your own, but there comes a time where you can't do it all on your own if you want to be successful in a different way. So it's important to think about, where can I use support staff, where can I use support tools. And in our white glove coaching cohorts, we're helping people determine what parts of the body, what parts of the business you can hand off to someone else and provide a elevated experience through your business.
Mm. Yeah, because let's talk about this for a second. Because when we is from when you were speaking, you said that you had a team, like a LinkedIn team doing outreach and stuff. I'm kind of curious, right? Because it sounds like what you're doing for your clients is quite a bit. And so, how do you manage your current capacity? Do you like cap it? Do you hire like who are your different hires? Kind of curious on that end.
So, yes, so thinking about growing your business as, as a coach or whatever your area is, I think it's important to know that how to identify yourself, right? So early on, I knew that I was the, as we would call some in some spaces, the subject matter expert. I was the coach. I had
Yes.
the lived experience. I had the credentials. But what I wasn't was a business coach, right? So
Mm,
I had to reach out and do some interviews and see who was a good fit to help me polish my business practice and model, nail it down, understand who my core audience was or is, and in some spaces they call that an avatar. And then from there, once I determined my core audience and messaging, then I was able to work with the team at that time to put content out. Right now that we know
mm,
who we're targeting, who we're talking to, now we need to message constantly. So early on, you probably wouldn't be surprised by this. I was really trying to write all my content, right? And my
mm,
team was like, look, you are running a whole business over there. You don't have time to put out 20 articles. Let's pull back the pace of which we release so that we're able to match your timing. So sometimes it's about strategizing with someone out other than yourself, because we I think we all sit around in
mm,
our own head and try to figure things out. But if you
mm,
haven't been trained in it and you aren't sure about it, then the best thing to do is try to get a consultation with someone,
mm,
try to get a meeting with someone to ask them how they did it and who they recommend and how to get a referral, and then go from
mm,
there. So, from each part of my business growth and development, I've had trusted advisors, but I've also really learned to trust myself because I know what I want to accomplish with this business and this company. And there have been times where I've frankly outgrown some of the people that or the businesses that I've worked with, and I've had to pivot, move on, find somebody else who is a good fit. And I would say something to always remember is it's your baby, it's your business, but you need family to help you raise your baby, if I could use that
mm.
metaphor.
Ah, I love that. I love that analogy. You need a family to raise the baby. Oh man, that's great. Okay. So something else I'm curious about is okay, you have all this support. You're talking about your family that is helping you like kind of put out these posts. I'm sure people are raising their hands and they're like, well, how do I work with Dr. Hill, right? And so I'm kind of curious at this point, what do your coaching engagements and offerings kind of look like? So, yeah. because some people do one-on-one, some people do group trainings. Like, I'm kind of curious about the modalities that you've gravitated to.
Yes, so the logistics are, people sign up to meet with me for a consultation, right? And
Mm.
in some spaces they would call that a chemistry call. I just say it's a, consultation because we want to see if this is a good fit, and determining a good fit really means like, can I help you, right? I want to have integrity around not just, okay, you saw me, I'm a coach, sure, I could help anybody. That's not how we roll over here at Acclivity, right? So we want to make sure that I or my team can really help you in what's going on now. So the person will fill out a pre-questionnaire, then they'll meet with me. Everybody meets with me because I need to determine if they're going to work with me or if I'm going to have them work with someone who's on my bench, right? In my
Mm.
group. And from there, the coaching models are, you can have a self-paced where we have content online. We have our online academy, the Acclivity Academy, where you can do that on your own, right? There's a price point for that. Then there's the coaching one to one with myself or one of my coaches, where we meet with you and you have access to the online course. And typically, the engagements can be around 4 months because we feel like that's a good time to have a start, a middle, and sort of a taper off. And towards the end of the 4 months, we assess whether it would be good to retain, or you just check in whenever you want to. I have some clients that I've worked with for 5 years. Did, the intensive piece of it in the beginning for 4 months, and then they're like, yes, I'm staying with you forever. And then there's others where, they just really need a support around perhaps putting together their promotion portfolio, or they are interviewing for a particular position. So we have different, it really depends on what the individual needs. If they need interview and application prep, we have a point for that. If they have a burning question, we have something called a quick clarity call, where they meet with us
Mm.
for an hour, and there's pre-work to that because we want people to really feel like they're coming away with something meaty. So they get pre-work, then they have an intensive hour with me or one of the coaches. Then they get immediate follow up within 2 hours of our meeting, because you really kind of, thinking a lot about the ideas that came up during that session. Sometimes people will call that like a popcorn session, where everything's just
Hmm.
still going. So then you get two more follow ups. One is 2 weeks later, and then one is 30 days later, because we want to make sure that you were able to carry that through. So that's the quick clarity session. So those are some different points of entries that our clients come through with.
Mm. Ooh, one other thing that, with your all the experience you've had, right? I'm kind of curious about this because a taboo subject a lot of time is like pricing and pricing strategies. And so a lot of coaches struggle with like, hey, what do I charge? How do I figure out that initial number? How do I package this? And of course, you don't have to give any hard numbers, but how do you think about pricing and structure today, whether that's like hourly packages, retainers, or value based? Like, are there any key lessons that you've learned
Yes.
throughout your experience that have shaped
That
your
I have,
experience?
and I'm happy to share those lessons here. One
Mm,
of the things that I mentioned earlier was that I worked with a business coach, and that person was initially in the corporate space. And because
mm,
I think coaches and clinicians are used to structuring on the hour, right? So sort of like the clinical hour or the service hour. So that's really a behavioral health model. But this particular coach had me reframe it and said, I don't want you to think about hourly. I want you to think about packaging, because
Mm,
coaching, really, the benefit of coaching is not a one-off. It's not just a one session and then we're good, right? That's more of a triage type of intervention. Coaching is
mm,
a bit more long term, and long term can be defined, as 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever you like, right? And so if you take a step back and you think about what would be the optimal minimal number of sessions that I could provide to a person to help them in whatever area they need assistance in, that's how you can come up with a package versus an hour, right? And so from there, you think about the things that really have gone into you preparing the package. So it's not just an hour
mm.
of, Dr. Hill or Dr. Yee's time. No, it's more about, I went to school for this. I've been doing this for X number of years. I really am an expert, or if you're starting, right, you think about it in that way. Now, what I had at that time was a great business coaching company that helped me put that together. What
Mm.
people have now that I didn't have because I started this so long ago is AI. So what you can do, and I love, love, love AI as a productivity tool. Everybody in my company uses it, right? We've even named
Mm.
her, right? So the thing that you can do as a sort of a hack, if you don't, know a business coach, or can't think about it, is put into your own AI what your concept of your strategy for your model is and your pricing package. So remember, I was talking about our quick clarity call, right? So that is
Yes.
an hour, but it's an hour of face interaction time. However, there's pre-work, there's follow-up work, and then there's the development of that quick clarity hour that went together. So when we were putting that pricing together, we ran a couple of models, pricing models, through our AI, as well as, based on what we've done before, to come up with a fair price point. So now
Mm,
I think it is a lot easier to determine how you want to do your pricing structure and what you want to do. I mean, I know there are still some coaches that offer 1 hour sessions. We don't really do that as much. We have different packages for different points of entry. Now, I should also say, because we understand and we appreciate there are different points in people's career, right? So you could be a student, you could be early career, you could be mid career, you could be advanced. So the pricing is based on where you are and what you could afford at that time. Clearly, a student could not afford, what a university provost could afford, right? And
yeah.
a associate or assistant faculty could not afford that either. But the other thing is, the way in which we're supporting them in their career development looks different. So you want to think about the time, the energy, the effort, the program development, and it's not just how much time you're spending on the call with the individual that you're coaching. It's all the other stuff. And my business coach really helped me to understand that, because, again, coming from a behavioral health model, I was like, oh, this is my hourly rate.
Yeah. I think that you bring up a really, really good point. I forgot what the analogy was. I'm probably butchering it, but I think it was like a plumber or something. Everybody uses this analogy where, maybe you have some sort of clog and then they spend like 10 minutes like unclogging it. But then you get this huge bill and the person asks like, "Hey, why are you charging me so much money?" Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you only spent 10 minutes on it, but they don't see all the years that went into like you be able to solve that problem really, really quickly. And yeah, I love your what you said about that. Um, One other thing I wanted to ask too, like if I could shift gears for a second. You've been in the game for 15 plus years. And so I guess where do you want this coaching business to take you in the next few years? Do you have like desires to scale? Do you want to hire more? Do you have secret dreams or ambitions no one else knows about? Kind of curious there.
I love that question, Kevin, because one of the things that I start every coaching engagement with is what is your dream, right? I know where you are now, but what is your dream? What is your vision? Because if we can pull the lens out, more panoramic view, then it helps us get out of the myopic, this is what I'm doing right now. So,
Mm-hmm.
love that question. And what I would say about what I'd like for the business and where I hope for it to be, in, let's just say, 5 years from now or even 10, is that we would have more coaches, that the reach would be triple what it is now, that our capacity would be able to service more people, and that we would also be able to lean more fully into the train the trainer model, because I can't be everything. My staff, current staff, can't be everything. But if we could help put a little bit of our DNA into what other coaches are doing to inspire them, to help them to understand that if they're inspired, they can inspire their clients and just leave the world a little better than when we found it.
Mm, I love that. So it sounds like, you might want to try some new models. You might want to hire more coaches. I'm also kind of curious here, right? Because everybody talks about the highlight reels, right? When you watch like basketball, you always see the highlight reels and whatnot. But I guess like in your current season of life and business right now, what are some growing pains that you're kind of noticing? Is there anything kind of unexpected going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, so this is great too because I definitely love a good highlight reel, but that's not the whole game, right? That's to help you stay engaged and go, wow, I missed that, but here's the high points. But then we didn't see the foul, we didn't see the the missed shots, we didn't see all of that stuff. So we have had, again, we've been doing this a long time. And so we've had a number of, I'll just call them growing pains, right? And so, if you've ever experienced a growth spurt or a growing pain or stretching into something, it doesn't always feel good. And so, something that I think, because I'm so much of a people person. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a businesswoman, and I do understand that that some of these are B2B engagements and some of these are staff, but they're still people, right? Having to sever a relationship with a business that I was with for over 5 years was not easy, and I wasn't able to do it quickly. I sort of, drug it out longer than I should have, which cost me money. But in the end, I felt good about the way I ended it, right? And people don't always talk about how it feels when something doesn't go the way you expected, and how you may end up internalizing that as a failure on your part. But I think something that can be considered is that it's not a failure, it's an opportunity to do an analysis, right? So we all know
Mm,
about SWOT analysis. So what could be done different? what needs to be done to keep the movement of the mission and the vision of what you want to do going forward, because if it's stagnant or stifled, then your vision and your mission are not being accomplished. So separating from a company, that was difficult. Trying to find clients can sometimes be challenging. There's, as they would say, sometimes it's feast and sometimes it's famine. And how do you reconcile that this is a business and you have to keep the doors open because you have staff, you have overhead, you have people looking to you. And when you're the founder, CEO, when you're the person in charge, you have to really be in charge. And it is not for the faint of heart. And to use another, cliche, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
you, right? So you have to be the motivator, you have to be the one who, when you didn't get any clients this month, or for you gone a stretch of 60 days without bringing in a new client, you have to be the innovator, and then you have to be the one who doesn't take a check. Right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you got to pay your staff, right? Or I want to, I will be the one to take the hit. I'm not going to let my people take the hit.
Yeah, that's true leadership right there, right? Like no one ever sees that as a business owner. And I don't know, there's this famous Peter Drucker quote I think about is like all profit is derived from risk, right? And that's the risk we take as a business owner, right? We put our people first because without them, the engine dries up. Otherwise, we're stuck doing everything ourselves, right? But like you said earlier, you need a family to raise a baby, and that baby's our business. So I
Yes.
love that. Okay. Let's go into, well, if you're open to it, I would love to play this game because it sounds like, so the reason why I want to play this game with you is because it sounds like you've invested quite a bit into your business. And as you know, like coaches, entrepreneurs, we invest to things like coaching, training, marketing, team members, a lot of different stuff. And so, what I kind of want, maybe I'll give you a simple prompt and you just share the first thing that comes to mind. If there's a story behind it, even better, but try to be as specific as possible. I kind of feel like maybe this was in your previous life where I'm probably sitting on the chair and you're like, you're telling me like, what are your thoughts and stuff like that. But there's going to be four prompts. All
Okay.
right. If you're open to it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. What is the first business investment you remember making?
My degree.
Mm. Last, what is the most recent business investment you made?
Hiring a marketing expert.
Marketing expert, like kind of like a fractional CMO?
So she's a little bit old school, and she is an
Oh.
Emmy award winning writer, producer, storyteller. And so I liked the idea of having someone who was skilled at storytelling to help me refine my stories. I'm a pretty good storyteller, I think. But having someone who has a focus on brand and marketing and storyteller, I think helped me
Mm,
and sharpen my focus and even expand my capacity to do storytelling,
mm,
because
it's beautiful.
your clients need to hear a compelling story, right? And
Mm,
sometimes the story that you've been telling, particularly if you've been telling it for so many years like myself, it needs a bit of a fresh perspective, and it needs
mm,
someone who has a great ear, a great trained ear. And so that was an investment that I decided to make, and it's been a couple of years now that I've had her, but it's been the best investment that I think I could have made.
Ooh, you stole my next one. I was going to ask, was the best business, best financial business investment you made and why? Okay.
Okay, so that one may have overlapped because it was the most recent, but it also is the best. So I think that at different points in the business development, I would answer it differently because there's been a number of great ones, right? Like bringing on an assistant to help me tackle everything related to responding to clients, to do the management of engaging with folks so that things aren't dropped along the way, hiring someone to build out my teach we use Teachable, but to build out the online courses. I have the content, but I didn't have time to do that myself. So I would say that the another one of the best investments that I made was just investing in people who know what they're doing so that I can continue to be the subject matter expert and they can run the back office and the other pieces of it that I really shouldn't be doing and have no interest in
I
doing,
love.
frankly.
Yeah. I think the beautiful part is like when you start outsourcing, like some of these people love doing those tasks that we don't love doing, and it becomes, I don't know, when I pay out my team, I just feel so grateful because I'm just like, oh, I get to sustain something, take something off the plate I hate, and they love this, and I sustain their living that way, and so that's
I
beautiful.
agree 100%. And I think that's the other sort of principle by which I not only run my business but live my life is you
Mm,
know a way to support the economy and other people's livelihood is to hire them for things, and
yes.
as you do that it also frees up your time to continue to sort of live up here in the clouds and be the subject matter expert or the driver of it so that they can keep their feet on the ground and move this engine forward.
Yeah. Okay. This last one,
Okay.
bit cheeky because there's always a silver lining, right? But what's the one of the what's the worst financial business investment you kind of wished you got your money back from?
Oh, wow. Okay. That I don't know. That's
Mm,
so interesting. Um, and I'll tell you why I'm struggling with that because I think that every investment that I've made, regardless of whether that was financial, time, I will just put that in the umbrella of resources.
mhm.
I always ask myself, even if it didn't turn out the way I thought it would, what am I supposed to learn from this? So
Yes.
I don't know that there's been a worst one. If I
Mm,
could flip that, if I
yeah.
could take some liberty and flip that and say, what do I wish I would have invested in sooner rather than later?
Mhm.
Right? I would have engaged an assistant from day one
Yeah.
because the assistant that I have now has been with me, I want to say probably for 7 or 8 years, and she knows me so well that if I were to step away for a month, she would be able to step in and nobody
Mm,
would know that I was gone. So having an assistant I think it's an essential investment. Having one that's a
mhm.
great one, right? And sometimes that takes time.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I definitely think having an assistant is like the game changer of things. So
Yes.
great advice. As we're talking about these stories, right? I guess how has your decision making process changed in the years of what to invest in and what not to invest in? Because I'm pretty sure Dr. Hill's early days, year one decision making process is very different from 15 years from now.
So I would say that I have become more refined and more strategic, right? So early
Mm,
on, the investments were around, the degree and I gotta go to all these conferences or I have to show up everywhere so that I can have visibility and credibility and just go, 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 go.
mm,
Now, many years later, I'm a lot more strategic. So, 2 years ago, I did invest in becoming a certified coach. I went through a program, I became certified, I got a credential, then I became certified through ICF, and then this past summer, took another test through ICF, and those decisions around becoming certified and credential were strategic. I have
mm,
some colleagues who apply for grants and RFPs and contracts. And what they were noticing was that more and more they were coming up against this, oh, you need to be ICF certified. And so I
mm,
was like, I have a PhD. I've been doing this forever. Why would we do that? And so we huddled and determined if this is going to make us more marketable, then and more competitive. Remember earlier I talked about career advancement and being competitive,
mm,
then I need to invest in this. And so I don't, travel all over the country as much as I did before, but anytime I'm going somewhere, I'm thinking about, can Acclivity be a sponsor? And if we're going to be a sponsor, at what level? Why? Because that raises our visibility. It's an investment. So rather than
mm,
me, having to go here or there, then I can just say, great, we'll sponsor you we'll sponsor the conference at XYZ level. We'll send a few things to put into the goodie bags, and our contact information, our logo is prominently placed, and these types of things. So everything is a lot more strategic because all resources matter, and there's not this endless pool of resources that I can pull from. So I want to be mindful about the time, energy, talents, and other types of things that we have to invest.
mm. What I love about that answer too is like you kept in mind about the target avatar that you have, whether this certification is going to matter to someone like that. I can imagine in someone in like if you're focusing on higher ed, like credentials and all that matter a lot to them versus like, a lot of business owners, like people who didn't go to college who are business owners, they care less about it. But it's really, really interesting your thought process on what to invest in and what not to invest in.
That's a great
Okay.
point. You definitely
Mm,
want to think about your avatar, your audience, and what's going to matter to them, right? And who you're pursuing, right? So, as I mentioned, some of my colleagues and I, we submit for these, RFPs and opportunities to work with different institutions, whether they're government or higher ed. And when you start to see things crop up in these requests for proposals or even in conversations, informal conversations, if somebody's asking you, oh, are you, certified, or oh, what type of, credentials or cred, or as we would say now, receipts do you have? You want to be paying attention to that because somebody somewhere mentioned it to that person, and that means they see value in it. But you don't want to go around chasing every certification, every degree, you can't be all things to everybody. So as you said, Kevin, you want to be mindful of what your audience is looking for and how you can support them in that area.
yeah, and it goes to show you like you always have to be kind of wary about the blanket advice people give you, which leads me into my next segment. So, final advice from you. As a business owner, you probably had a lifetime of advice by now, some of it great, some of it terrible, probably a lot of it unsolicited as well. And so, kind of curious about Overrated, underrated. So, what's your most overrated piece of business advice that you've heard so far or gotten so far? Maybe this might be something that people repeat all the time, that is kind of trashy or maybe misunderstood. And what's the most underrated? Meaning, like, maybe something you wish people took a little bit more seriously.
So the overrated is you got to be on social media all the time. You have to be pushing
Mm,
out content everywhere all the time. And I don't agree with that. I think that you have to be mindful of where your audience is and come up with a rhythm that works for you and them, right? So you can find me on LinkedIn, YouTube. I have a podcast, X, and Facebook. You will not find me on Twitter or TikTok
mm,
because, I'm sorry, you won't find me on TikTok or Instagram, right?
mm,
Because it's not really where my audience is. And so early on, people were like, "Oh, you need to be on, on IG." And then later they were like, "You need to be on TikTok." And I was like, "Not so much." And I still hear that today. When people see me, they're like, "I can't believe you're not on." And I'm like, "I first of all, not my audience. Secondly, I don't want to do that." So that would be the overrated. It's just be mindful of social media because social media takes a
mm.
lot of time and effort. It is a beast, and you have to know which part of the beast you want to feed.
Thank you for that. Last question for you, probably the hardest one of the day. How can people find you and connect with you? You kind of mentioned
Oh
it
yeah,
earlier.
that's the so you can you can find me on LinkedIn at Dr. Loren M. Hill. And you can go to my website, which is www.theacclivity, theacclivity.com. You can also find me on YouTube. We have a podcast titled The Strategist is In. And frankly, you could just Google me. And so it's Loren, right? Just make sure it's Loren, and you'll find me.
Oh, man. As I'm looking back through my notes and stuff, right? Like my really bad handwriting. What the heck? That's my other
That
podcast host.
okay.
That's hilarious. Okay. As I am looking through my really bad handwriting, through my pharmacist handwriting,
Oh,
there's just so many takeaways I had. I just loved your analogy about you need a family to raise a baby. I really liked your the way that you explained your thought process behind making an investment. I mean, sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, we just hear this blanket advice, but we don't hear the context behind it, and I really like that.
hmm.
And then you didn't really explicitly say this, but I think throughout this podcast, through my experience at least encountering academics, I feel like there's sometimes this limiting belief where they're just like, hey, I'm an academic, I'm not a business owner. And it's kind of really interesting seeing someone like yourself being able to transcend that, being able to break those limiting beliefs and be proof of that transformation. So that's a long-winded way of me saying, hey, Dr. Hill, I really appreciate your work. Your work matters. And thank you so much for sharing your time, your stories, and your wisdom on this podcast today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to be here today.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.